I used to think that love was measured in quiet moments, the way Dana's fingers would find mine under the dinner table, the small smile she'd give me across a crowded room, the gentle weight of her head on my shoulder as we fell asleep, the soft thank you when I fixed something around the house without being asked, the way she used to look at me, like I was her anchor in a stormy world. We met in graduate school, me in engineering, her in marketing. I was the shy one who noticed her from across the library, too nervous to approach. She was the one who finally sat next to me one day, asked to borrow a pen, and somehow never gave it back. That pen became a running joke between us, a symbol of how she had claimed not just my stationery, but my heart. For 6 years of marriage, I believed we were building something unbreakable. I fixed things. She brightened them. I cooked. She entertained. I provided stability. She brought spontaneity. A perfect balance, I thought. Those moments had vanished months ago. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. The signs were there, each one small enough to dismiss individually, but devastating when viewed together. The way her eyes no longer lingered on mine. How her touch had become perfunctory, a habit rather than a desire. The increasing frequency with which she found reasons to be away from home. Jason, seriously? Now? Dana's voice cut through the darkness of our bedroom. Her phone illuminated her face with an eerie glow, highlighting the annoyance in her expression. I had rolled toward her, my hand tentatively reaching across the vast emptiness that had become our king-sized bed. I thought maybe we could... I have an early meeting tomorrow. She didn't look up from her screen. Her thumbs moved rapidly, the slight curve of her lips suggesting whoever she was texting was far more interesting than I could ever be. I retreated to my side, staring at the ceiling. This had become our routine. My advances rebuffed, my presence tolerated. Our conversations reduced to logistics about grocery lists and utility bills. I fixed the kitchen sink today, I said, reaching for any semblance of connection. It won't drip anymore. Dana sighed heavily. Great. House elf strikes again. The phrase stung, though I wasn't entirely sure why. Just another dismissive comment in a growing collection of small wounds. What did you just call me? I asked, my voice softer than I intended. Nothing. Go to sleep, Jason. Sleep didn't come. Not that night, nor the nights that followed. I couldn't stop turning the phrase over in my mind. House elf. The casual cruelty of it. The implication that my contributions to our life together, the cooking, the fixing, the constant steady presence, were somehow servile rather than loving. I started noticing other changes. The way Dana angled her phone away when I entered the room. The mysterious Pilates classes that had suddenly become a non-negotiable part of her schedule 3 nights a week. The new underwear she never wore for me. The perfume that wasn't applied until she was leaving the house. The sudden interest in her appearance that had nothing to do with me. We had once shared everything. Our phones had been open books to each other, not because we snooped, but because we had nothing to hide. When had that changed? When had she started creating passwords I didn't know, turning her screen away when messages came in, laughing at private jokes that were no longer shared with me? "You're working late again?" I had asked one evening, when she was dressed more carefully than a typical workday warranted. "Big presentation tomorrow," she'd said, not quite meeting my eyes. "The team's pulling together some last-minute changes." I'd nodded, offered to make her a late dinner when she returned. She'd brushed me off with a quick, "Don't wait up. We'll probably order in." I stayed up anyway, pretending to sleep when she crept in past midnight, the scent of wine and unfamiliar cologne clinging to her clothes. Denial is a powerful thing. I constructed elaborate explanations for each red flag, desperately trying to maintain the fiction of our marriage. Maybe she was planning a surprise for me. Maybe she was dealing with a personal issue she wasn't ready to share. Maybe she was just going through a phase, rediscovering herself after settling into the comfortable routine of marriage. I buried my suspicions beneath a mountain of justifications. I doubled down on being the husband I thought she wanted, taking on more household chores, planning surprise date nights, suggesting weekend getaways. Each effort was met with increasingly thin enthusiasm, sometimes outright annoyance. "I don't need you to plan every minute of my life, Jason," she'd snapped when I suggested a trip to the coast for our anniversary. "Maybe I just want some space." Space. Such an innocuous word for such a devastating concept. Until one night, when denial was no longer possible. I had come home early from work, planning to surprise Dana with her favorite takeout. The house was quiet when I entered, but I heard soft laughter coming from our bedroom. I stood frozen in our hallway, takeout bags dangling from my suddenly numb fingers. "Let me see if he texted," Dana's voice carried through the partially open door. The casual dismissal in her tone made my stomach turn. "Nope. Probably still at work fixing someone else's problems. It's what he does best." A male laugh, unfamiliar, confident, mocking, followed her words. "Show me that picture again," the man said. "The one where he's wearing the apron." "This one?" Dana's voice was playful, flirtatious in a way I hadn't heard in years. "My little house elf, making dinner after working all day. Isn't it pathetic? How do you stand it? He sounds boring as hell." "The house is in his name," Dana replied. "And he cooks a mean risotto. You have to be strategic about these things, babe." My world collapsed around me. The bag slipped from my hands, landing with a dull thud on the hardwood floor. I backed away silently, retrieving the fallen food before slipping out the front door. I sat in my car for hours, parked down the street, watching as a man I'd never seen before eventually left our home. He was tall, muscular, confident in his movements. Everything I apparently wasn't. That night, I slept in a hotel. I needed space to think, to plan. Dana called twice, but I texted that I was working late on an emergency project and staying with a colleague closer to the office. She didn't question it. She didn't care. I returned home the next evening with a calm I didn't know I possessed. Dana was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. "Hey," she said without looking up. "There's leftover pizza if you want it." "Thanks." I set my laptop bag down. "I was thinking of redoing the bedroom." That got her attention. She glanced up, confused. "What?" "The bedroom. I thought I'd upgrade it. Smart lighting, better sound system, maybe some motion-activated features." I kept my voice casual, matching her indifference with practiced precision. Dana snorted, returning to her phone. "Whatever makes you happy, I guess." "It would be nice to have some ambiance," I continued, "for when we're intimate." This time her laugh was sharp, cutting. She set her phone down and looked at me with naked contempt. "Why would I sleep with you when I've got better waiting for me after Pilates?" The words hung in the air between us. She hadn't bothered to deny it, hadn't even attempted to hide her affair. Instead, she'd thrown it in my face, confident that I would do nothing, that I would continue to be the pathetic house elf, cooking her meals and fixing her problems while she found pleasure elsewhere. Something shifted inside me. A foundation cracked, revealing something darker beneath. "I think I'll start on the upgrades this weekend," I said, my voice steady despite the hurricane raging inside me. Dana's phone pinged. She picked it up, a small smile playing on her lips. "Do whatever you want, Jason. I won't be here anyway. Girls' weekend with Rachel." Rachel, her cover for the affair. How had I not seen it before? "That sounds nice. Have fun." Her eyes narrowed slightly, suspicious of my easy acceptance, but she merely shrugged and went back to her phone. That night, as Dana slept, I went through her phone. The password hadn't changed since we'd first started dating. Her childhood dog's name. The evidence was immediate and overwhelming. Messages to her lover, describing their encounters in graphic detail. Screenshots of my texts to her, shared with her friends alongside mocking comments. A group chat where they referred to me as the house elf, and speculated about how long it would take me to discover their affair. Worse were the messages to her parents, playing the victim, claiming I was emotionally unavailable, that I prioritized work over our marriage, that she was desperately trying to make things work while I remained distant. I took screenshots of everything, backing them up to a secure cloud account. Then I replaced her phone exactly where I'd found it and went to sleep on the couch. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind raced through every conversation, every dismissive gesture, every excuse she'd made over the past months. The puzzle pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. How long had it been happening? 6 months? A year? Had there been others before Ryan? I felt physically ill, rushing to the bathroom to empty the contents of my stomach. In the harsh fluorescent light, I stared at my reflection, the face of a man who had been thoroughly, expertly deceived. A man who had cooked meals for his wife while she texted her lover from the dining table. A man who had fixed a leaky faucet while his wife shared mocking photos of him with her friends. The humiliation burned worse than the betrayal. Not just the affair itself, but the public spectacle she had made of me. The group chats, the screenshots, the house elf nickname that had apparently become a running joke among people I'd never met. By morning, my shock had crystallized into something colder, harder. I didn't confront her over breakfast. I didn't throw her phone at the wall or demand explanations. Instead, I kissed her on the cheek as she scrolled through Instagram, told her I'd pick up dinner on my way home, and left for work as if nothing had changed. On my lunch break, I made 2 calls, one to a divorce attorney and one to a friend who worked in IT security. The attorney advised me to gather evidence but take no action until I was ready to file. My IT friend listened to my situation with growing outrage. "I can help you set up a surveillance system," he offered. "Something discreet but comprehensive." "Is that legal?" I asked. "In your own home?" "Absolutely. Just avoid bathrooms or anywhere with a reasonable expectation of privacy." I considered this. "What about streaming capabilities? You thinking of going live with whatever you catch?" "Something like that." There was a pause. "That gets into murky territory, legally speaking. But technically, easy to set up." That evening, I began researching smart home systems with an intensity that would have alarmed Dana had she been paying any attention. But she wasn't. She was too busy with her phone, with her secret life, with her calculated betrayal. The next few weeks were a masterclass in deception, not from Dana, but from me. I played the oblivious husband perfectly. I began the bedroom renovations, installing blackout curtains, color-changing LED strips, advanced speakers, and motion sensors. Dana rolled her eyes at each new addition, but her disdain was useful. It meant she paid no attention to the additional modifications I made. Hidden cameras in strategic locations, microphones sensitive enough to capture whispered conversations. Every device connected to a central hub, which I controlled from a custom app on my phone. I programmed specific routines, tested connections, and ensured seamless operation, all while maintaining my role as the dutiful, clueless husband. I was waiting for the perfect opportunity. It came when Dana announced she was attending a weekend yoga retreat. I pretended to believe her, then announced my own plans to visit my brother 2 states away. "The whole weekend?" she asked, a hint of excitement in her voice that she couldn't quite conceal. "Yes. I'll leave Friday afternoon and be back Sunday night. Will you be okay alone?" The concern in my voice was convincing. Dana's smile was even more so. "I'll manage somehow," she said, already typing on her phone. That Friday, I made a show of packing my bag and loading it into my car. I kissed Dana goodbye, noting how she barely returned the gesture, her mind already on her upcoming rendezvous. I drove away, circled the block, and parked in the lot of a nearby shopping center. Then I walked back to our neighborhood, letting myself into the empty house of a neighbor who was away on vacation. A neighbor who had given me their key years ago, when I'd offered to water their plants during their frequent trips. From there, I waited, watching the feed from our home security cameras on my tablet. Dana spent an hour getting ready, longer than she'd spent preparing for our last anniversary dinner. She changed outfits 3 times, styled her hair, applied makeup with meticulous care. The transformation was remarkable. She looked beautiful, radiant in a way she never looked for me anymore. At precisely 7:30, the doorbell rang. Dana's lover, Ryan, according to the texts, stepped inside. Their greeting was immediate and physical. No pretense, no warming up. Their desire for each other was palpable even through the security footage. They didn't waste time with dinner or conversation. Within minutes, they were in our bedroom, the bedroom I'd spent weeks modifying. I watched as they undressed each other, as they fell onto the bed we'd purchased together when we'd first moved in, dreams of a future family still bright in our minds. I took a deep breath and opened my custom app. With one tap, I activated Ambiance Mode. Inside our bedroom, the blackout curtains suddenly closed with a mechanical whir. The lights shifted to a bright, clinical white, illuminating every detail of their naked bodies. The speakers came to life with my recorded voice. "Welcome to Ambiance Mode. Streaming now." Dana and Ryan froze. The confusion on their faces was almost comical. "What the f***?" Ryan scrambled to cover himself. "What's happening?" Dana's eyes darted around the room, landing on one of the small cameras I'd hidden. Her face went pale. "Jason?" Her voice was small, fearful. I didn't respond. Instead, I activated the second phase of my plan. The speakers began to play a recorded compilation. Dana's cruel comments about me, integrated with timestamps and device logs, proving the authenticity of every word. Her mocking laughter, her cold dismissal of our marriage. "My little house elf, isn't it pathetic? The house is in his name, and he cooks a mean risotto. Why would I sleep with you when I've got better waiting for me?" As these played, text messages appeared on their phones, both of their phones, as I'd gained access to Ryan's device through Dana's contacts. The messages notified them that their encounter was streaming live across multiple platforms: Dana's office Slack workspace, her parents' family Facebook group, Ryan's company's internal communication channel, the community board of the gym where they'd first met, and, most devastatingly for Ryan, directly to his wife's phone. The panic that ensued was immediate and chaotic. Dana screamed, diving for her phone to confirm what she already knew was true. Ryan cursed, scrambling to get dressed, frantically calling his wife, who, unsurprisingly, wasn't answering. "Turn it off!" Dana shrieked at the ceiling, as if I could hear her. I could, of course, but I had no intention of stopping what I'd set in motion. "Jason, please! I'm sorry! Please turn it off!" I watched it all unfold through the security feeds, Ryan's frantic dressing, his desperate attempts to call his wife, his final panicked exit from our house. Dana remained, alternating between hysterical crying and furious attempts to end the live streams. But there was nothing she could do. I had designed the system with meticulous care. Once triggered, Ambiance Mode would run its full course, broadcasting for exactly 30 minutes. Enough time for the damage to be complete and irreversible. I waited another hour, savoring the moment, watching as Dana's phone exploded with notifications. Calls from her boss, texts from her parents, messages from friends, some expressing shock, others disgust. The carefully constructed facade of her life was crumbling in real time, and I had a front-row seat to the collapse. With perfect timing, her office Slack lit up with a message from HR, requesting an immediate meeting in the morning. Her parents' group chat filled with expressions of shame and disappointment. The gym's community board exploded with comments, some sharing screenshots, others tagging her directly with expressions of revulsion. Only when I was certain the destruction was complete did I begin my walk home. The evening air was cool against my face. I felt oddly light, as if a crushing weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the constant pressure of suspicion and hurt. constricting my chest. By the time I walked home, calmly, unhurriedly, Ryan was long gone, and Dana was huddled on our couch, still in her bathrobe, her makeup streaked with tears. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, each one causing her to flinch. She looked small, diminished, her usual confidence shattered by the public exposure of her true self. I entered quietly, setting my keys on the counter like I always did. The familiar domestic gesture felt surreal in the context of what had just transpired, a final act in the play of our marriage. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "How could you do this to me?" The audacity of her question should have angered me, but I felt nothing but a cold satisfaction. "I didn't do anything to you, Dana. I simply showed everyone who you really are." "They fired me," she whispered. "My boss called, said they couldn't have someone with such poor judgment representing the company." I nodded, unsurprised. "And Ryan?" Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "His wife showed up. She was so angry. She told him not to come home, said she'd already called a lawyer." "And your parents?" Dana's face crumpled. "They don't want to speak to me. My dad said, he said I'm no longer their daughter." I moved to the kitchen, filling a glass with water. My hands were steady, my breathing even. "You should pack your things." "What?" "This house is in my name, as you've so helpfully pointed out to Ryan many times. I want you out by morning." "You can't be serious." Dana stood, her shock genuine. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem." I took a sip of water. "You've made it abundantly clear that I'm nothing more than a convenience to you." "Well, the convenience has ended." "Jason, please. I made a mistake. We can work through this." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd loved for 8 years. The woman who had systematically dismantled my self-worth with casual cruelty. The woman who had laughed while betraying me. "There's nothing to work through, Dana. Our marriage ended long before tonight. The difference is that now we both know it." She tried several more arguments. Tears. Pleading. Even attempted seduction, as if I could ever touch her again without seeing her in our bed with Ryan. But my decision was made. I remained unmoved. By morning, she had packed a suitcase and called an Uber. Before she left, she turned to me one last time. "You've ruined my life," she said, her voice hollow. "No," I replied calmly. "You did that yourself. I just made sure you couldn't ruin mine too." The weeks that followed were surprisingly peaceful. I moved into our guest room, speaking to Dana only when absolutely necessary. She alternated between tearful pleas for forgiveness and bitter accusations that I had overreacted. Neither approach moved me. I had crossed a threshold beyond which her manipulation had no power. 3 days after ambiance mode, Dana was formally terminated from her position. The HR email cited conduct unbecoming of a company representative and irreparable damage to the company's reputation. Her belongings arrived in a cardboard box, delivered by a courier rather than a colleague. No one at the office was willing to face her. Her parents had not called again after that initial conversation. Her father, a traditional man with strict moral principles, had apparently disowned her outright. Her mother, always the more forgiving one, had sent a single text. "We need time. Don't contact us until we reach out." That message had reduced Dana to sobbing on the kitchen floor, a sight that would have broken my heart months earlier. Now I simply stepped around her and made myself a cup of coffee. Ryan's situation was equally dire. His wife had not only thrown him out, but had leveraged her family's connections to ensure everyone in their social circle knew exactly why. His company, a conservative financial firm with a strict morality clause in their employment contracts, had placed him on indefinite leave while they reviewed the situation. His assets were frozen pending divorce proceedings. I filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences rather than infidelity. I didn't need the public spectacle of a contentious divorce. The damage had already been done. Dana's reputation was in tatters. She'd lost her job, her friends, her family's support. Ryan's wife had moved quickly with their divorce, leaving him financially devastated. Dana tried to spin the story on social media, claimed the videos were deep fakes, accused me of emotional abuse, attempted to paint herself as the victim. But the evidence I'd gathered was irrefutable. The timestamps, the device logs, the messages in her own words, mocking me to her friends. My lawyer was ruthlessly efficient. The divorce was finalized in record time, with Dana receiving nothing. No alimony, no claim to the house, no share of our joint investments. She'd signed a prenuptial agreement when we married, a suggestion from her father, ironically, who hadn't trusted me to provide for his daughter. That same agreement now protected me from her claims. The last I heard, Dana was living in a studio apartment, working as a server at a chain restaurant. Ryan had moved to another state, his career in corporate finance effectively over after the scandal. Their affair, once so exciting and forbidden, had cost them everything. As for me, I sold the house. Too many memories, none of them good anymore. The real estate market was strong, and the property had appreciated significantly since our purchase. My lawyer ensured that none of the proceeds went to Dana, citing the prenuptial agreement and providing evidence of her explicit statements about staying with me only for financial security. I bought a smaller place closer to the water, a modern condo with floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded the space with natural light. No shadowy corners, no hidden secrets, just open, honest space. The first night in my new home was strangely emotional. I stood in the empty living room surrounded by unpacked boxes and felt an overwhelming sense of both loss and possibility. I had loved Dana, truly, deeply loved her. The betrayal hadn't erased 8 years of shared history, of genuine connection, of building a life together. I allowed myself one night of mourning for what we had lost, for the future we would never have. By morning, I was ready to begin again. I furnished the place sparsely, with pieces chosen for comfort rather than show. I hung no photos from my marriage, kept no mementos of Dana. Instead, I filled the walls with new art, abstract pieces that spoke to me of movement and transformation. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a mixed breed with soulful eyes who needed someone as much as I did. My IT friend who had helped set up the ambiance mode system checked in regularly, concerned about my isolation. At his insistence, I joined him for weekly poker nights, where I met other men going through divorces or major life transitions. Their stories varied, but the underlying themes were consistent: betrayal, disillusionment, and ultimately, rebuilding. Slowly, I reclaimed parts of myself that had been submerged during my marriage. I discovered I enjoyed kayaking, something Dana had always dismissed as boring outdoor stuff. I took cooking classes, expanding beyond the practical meals I'd prepared for us into more experimental cuisine. I traveled alone for the first time since college, a 2-week trip to Japan that Dana had always vetoed as too far and too foreign. Quiet, clean, peaceful. Every night I turn on the smart lights I installed myself, programming them to shift through calming blues and greens. Sometimes I sit on my balcony, watching the water, allowing memories to surface and then drift away like the tide. I'm not angry anymore. The betrayal still stings when I think about it, but those moments are increasingly rare. I've started cooking for pleasure again, inviting friends over for dinner parties. I've rediscovered hobbies abandoned during my marriage. I've even started dating, cautiously, honestly. Women who appreciate directness, who understand that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. Sometimes I think about Dana and Ryan, about how quickly their lives unraveled. I don't regret what I did. I simply ensured that actions had consequences, that betrayal carried a cost. Some might call it revenge, but I prefer to think of it as justice. Cold, calculated and proportionate to the crime. Every evening as the sun sets over the water, I activate my new smart home system with a simple voice command, Ambiance Mode. The lights dim to a warm golden glow. Soft music fills the room, and I smile to myself, at peace in my solitude. After all, ambiance is everything. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.